Hi, I am Roblin. For over 10 years, I've been partnering with leading multinational organizations for International Women's Day, Women's History Month. It's a great opportunity to come together and share, to honor women, to honor the women that have meaningfully touched our lives, also to honor women everywhere. And of course, it's a great opportunity to learn, to understand important topics and figure out how they resonate with you personally and what you can do about them. This year, it's about embracing equity. To embrace equity, what does that mean? Let's take a few minutes to discuss that. If you're working in a global company, the E is often that middle letter in your DEI strategy: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And look, if you're asking yourself, like, what does this mean? You're not alone. A lot of the people I interact with aren't so clear, or even if they have a conceptual or theoretical understanding, it's like, how does this translate into my everyday life? Or what we can really do in and out of our organizations. That part can be pretty confusing. So let's take a couple minutes to clear this up, shall we? Let's talk about equity. Most basically, equity is about fairness, being fair to everyone. In a workplace context, I think a lot of people, when they think about equity at work, the first thing they think about is equity in terms of pay equity. Do people who do the same job get paid fairly? There are these cute videos online that show kids doing basic jobs around the house. And then at the end, their rewards are based on whether they were girls or boys. You see the kids react to this and express how unfair it is. You can search, for example, for the A and Z equal future pocket money video. In reality, of course, it can be more complex because there's things like qualifications, experience, or tenure that all kind of get factored into what a person might make. But gender isn't relevant. But, in the US, for 2023, for example, March 14th will mark the Equal Pay Day. This date symbolizes how far into the year women must work to earn what men earned in the previous year for the same work. In China, for example, research shows that the gender pay gap is worse in rural areas than it is in urban areas. It shows that private companies, the gap is bigger than in public ones. I see in Australia statistics showing that just over half of organizations actually analyze their pay data for gaps and take action to close them, with about 29% of companies actually transparently reporting those pay metrics. So, I invite you to get curious about what it looks like in your own country, what it looks like in your own organization. This is one way you might embrace equity. But there's more to equity than this, too. I grew up in Canada. I was raised with this idea that everyone's equal. That is, that everyone has equal value and should have equal access to opportunity. Equal access to opportunity. That's this idea that anyone who wants to work in a certain field and puts in the adequate work and acquires the adequate experience, the adequate qualifications, should be able to access it. So there is this approach that people that share my upbringing might think like, oh, if everyone should have equal opportunity, then I should just treat everyone the same. If I treat everyone the same, then everyone should have the same chance of success. Let's just take a really simple example to assess this. Yeah, a mask. Is there one size of a mask that fits all faces? If you have a child, you're going to put a child-sized mask on your child. If you wear an ill-fitting mask or you place an ill-fitting mask on someone else, it doesn't do its job. It will fail to actually keep you safe. I remember a few years ago, one big company got some negative press across the Asia Pacific region when it was discovered that their masks didn't actually accommodate so many face sizes, including someone like me with a big nose. But in this example, we want everyone to have the same level of protection. But to do that, actually, we can't give everyone the same mask. Take a look at this picture here. This comes from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. I think it's a great picture. On the top, you see if you give everybody something that's the same, some people might thrive, but others will struggle. And maybe actually some will get hurt or not be able to participate. Not everyone's the same. And in this picture, it's about shape and size and ability. But of course, in life, it's far more complex. People have different starting points that are caused from many different aspects of a person. their socioeconomic status, gender, age, race, where you grow up, your accent, and many, many, many more, and how all of those different aspects of a person intersect. If you want equality of opportunity, then equity is key. Equity is about giving people what they need in order to be successful. To give people what they need, first, you've got to recognize that not everybody has the same needs. I want to show this cartoon. This is from The New Yorker. It's a cartoon by Victor Varnado. This is in the context of racism. Actually, here we see somebody from the dominant white group in the US acknowledging and recognizing racism. And actually, a person of color is saying, this is just the beginning. Now we actually have to do something about it to address it both individually and in our systems. In countries that are more individualist, like many Western countries, if we deny that people have different starting points and we believe that everyone has this like equal shot at the life they want, and it really actually denies the very real barriers that people face. It denies people's real lived experiences, both at the individual level, but also at the systemic level. It's why when people talk about equity, they're also often talking about justice together, equity and justice. But so what does equity, look like in practice? I'm going to give a few examples. A few years ago on International Women's Day, I was invited to a factory in China. We were talking about in the factory context, what were some of the needs specifically that women had? And they had identified one specific need was around menstruation. Women with menstrual periods who were working on the factory floor, standing for long periods of time on the first day of their period, and how hard that was. So they looked at setting their schedules more flexibly around their menstrual period to avoid those long shifts on the first day of their period. Another sort of example around menstruation, I know Luna Naturals out of Hong Kong has great initiatives to make healthy products available to women in the workplace and partners with companies to do this. I'll, place a link in the chat about that. I've heard too, like in factories in India, for example, that one thing that's worked to get more women into the workforce is to create an opportunity where family members are actually invited to come in and tour the factory and learn more about the jobs and see the facility. Look, the first step, that very first step, is to recognize that different people have different needs. Just going to go ahead and share my screen. So we're really getting into what can you do? That's just the first step. But you can also ask yourself, look, do I have what I need in order to contribute my best work? What's getting in my way? What are the barriers I'm facing? Are there ways that I have to work twice as hard as others? I've heard things around the world in projects that I've taken on around things like your school background, your education background, maybe your English level in a multinational if you're um, working in countries with non-native English speaking countries and with Western headquarters. These things might have an unnecessary weight and propel certain people ahead while they hold other people back. Things like women handling extra things around the office, taking notes in a meeting, organizing outings, playing this sort of role, this unwritten rule that women are supposed to be the caretakers, taking care of everybody in the office. These are extra roles that aren't part of the job that take a lot of time and energy. So get curious about others. What are others needing to do in order to do their best work in their best way? What gets in their way? Are there ways that they have to work twice as hard as others? I had a client once that said that their Korean team needed virtual meeting skills, like a training around that. It turned out, actually, when I started to better understand what was going on, that the calls were often scheduled between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning for many of these professionals. The Korean team, they didn't need virtual meeting skills training. They needed an equitable meeting schedule. They needed to be able to think consciously globally about what times would be the best and to share that burden of working across time zones. How do you embrace inequities? You've got to notice them, you've got to get curious about them, and you have to name them. They could be individual things, but they could also be part of a larger systemic issue. Share the load. Ask for what you need and do what you really can to give people what they need. DEI, it's not some far off thing that's, you know, only relevant to people far away or the people who are handling diversity and equity and inclusion in your organization. It's about giving people, about giving you what you need in order to succeed. If you're a leader managing others, it's about equipping your team to do their best work and contribute their best in their way. You, this is about you and your people. Hey, I invite you to share this video with your colleagues, share it with your friends, share it with those who are going to be organizing your International Women's Day program this year. I hope it can give some inspiration. If you need help landing your DEI strategy message in different contexts, let me know. What I care about most is helping people to thrive. So, what are you going to do? How are you going to embrace equity? Happy International Women's Day 2023.